I gotta figure out the right music here. All right, what's up, YouTube?
It's happening.
All right, it's filtration day.
It is. And you should see the gunk coming out of his 360 that you'll see today.
There's not even a single fish. I mean, that rock, it must have been super duper dirty. So we're going to talk about a few different things today. And I think you're going to learn something new about a skimmer. I think you're going to learn something new about the roller mat type fleece materials.
Fleece material.
Learn something about algae scrubber versus refugium versus reactor. At least why we chose the different options here and how to tune them, what makes one different than another one.
And hopefully how they all work together as this solo, the solution for filtration.
Honestly, all three of these you could run alone, but you're going to learn today why you would use all three and what they're going to do together that they couldn't do apart. So there we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Sweet.
So number one, filtration here, and you're going to see it. Again, these are the three pieces of filtration that we selected. This is the roller mat, or it's like the fleece filter for the Dream Box.
Yeah, built in. Really awesome.
Then there is the Bubble King.
The Deluxe?
Supermarine Deluxe.
Yes.
Right? I think, is it a 200 or 250? I can't remember.
I think that one's the 200.
Yeah, it's a little smaller on purpose. You'll hear why. And then the Pax Bellum, which is an algae reactor. We're going to go chaetomorpha in there. You're going to hear why we selected that one as well. All right. So if you're following along, most of you probably already know why we selected those things, but you're going to hear a little bit more about it.
Well, and the title of today's live stream kind of alludes to it. Like each one has its own individual purpose and where strengths.
So there are a few things you were trying to remove here. So let's just kind of hit them up real quick.
Right.
The first one is you're trying to remove uneaten fish food, right? So you dump a bunch of food in, how much of the fish do the fish eat?
Well, it depends, because if I'm feeding super light, like one pellet at a time, I got this little 7-gallon tank on my desk, and I feed him like 1 or 2 pellets at a time, so I can watch him eat it, and it doesn't go to waste. But otherwise, in the 60-gallon cube right next to me, I just toss a bunch of food in. I don't know if they actually get it all.
The more fish you have, the longer you've had the tank, the little looser you are about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much, you'll know for yourself how much food gets wasted in your tank, but you're trying to remove as much of that broken down wasted food as possible with your filtration, those three things. Then the next thing you're trying to remove is what? It's called a fish turd.
Yep. This was a great grab by Dave one day, and we've used this shot a lot.
You can see the turd actually popping out.
Coming out. Yep.
Okay.
So all fish do it.
The reality is the fish are pooping and peeing in there all day long. It reminds me of that one scene from Moana, where she yells at the ocean, fish pee in you all day long. It's true. So the little box is full of fish pee and turds, and we want to remove that stuff. We don't it's the best of our ability.
We can think of it like a cat litter box of similar sorts. It's all condensed into one area. Got to get it out of there.
Yeah. All right. So the next thing is we also we missed some of that. So there's lots of nitrate and phosphate in the water. We also want to remove that. So when it's all broken down and processed by all the bacteria and everything in the tank, nitrate and phosphate are kind of left over.
Still there, yeah.
All right. So in that spirit, we want to remove all of those things, and there's going to be 3 methods to it.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to give you a heads up right away. Is the fleece or your filter socks in your tank, whatever that kind of material, or even that filter pad. We've seen WWC use it, the little sheets and stuff.
Yeah.
All that is designed to take out largely the large pellets of food and shrimp and stuff that nothing gets eaten, maybe even the turd that just happened.
I mean, it kind of works, if you think about it, the breakdown kind of works like a French drain. You start with big particles, and smaller particles, smaller, until we're left with elements.
So Skimmer is going to remove the next broken down component of it with proteins and stuff. It will take out small particles of food too. And then when it misses, you're going to hit up with the algae reactor or your scrubber or whatnot, and that's actually going to take out the elements of nitrate and phosphate.
Broken down to its most basic level.
Yep. All right. So fleece. Let's start it. So this is the the most basic form of filtration. I'm going to tell you though, it is actually probably one of the best filters on there if you maintain it.
Oh, right? Yeah. The number one example being filter socks when we got there. So We did that BRStv Investigates on how often you should change filter socks, and we had some tanks that were getting changed twice a day, some were getting changed once a day, 3 times, or every 3rd day, once a week.
Twice a week,
and twice
every other week.
Yeah,
too.
and then it turned out to, as you would expect, every 3 days is about right.
So let me tell you why the filter sock, the little $3 filter sock you have in your tank, is better than your $600 skimmer and better than your like fancy Refugium and all that other stuff in some ways.
Yeah.
It's the only thing on the whole tank that is going to remove the waste before it's had a chance to break down at all, right? If you maintain it, right? Here's the caveat though. I actually don't know that many people who change out their filter socks every 3 days.
There's a few out there, but it's a few.
Never was me.
No,
ever.
me either.
And if it's you and you're raising your hand, hey, I do it every 3 days. You are probably one of the best reefers out there. Pat yourself on the back, man. Bravo. Inspiration to us all.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, though, the new wave is like the roller mat came out like 5-6 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And you can see it's actually got like, fish or shrimp food stuck to it, right?
That will get rolled up and out of the tank well before it even has a chance to break down.
Dissolved brown turd all over it. It's got decaying food. It's got little bits of shrimp. And all of that is just going to automatically get rolled up right on out of there and rolled right out of the tank. That is like an awesome solution for like what we're looking to do here.
Oh, and the solution for lazy reefers like me who's not going to change every 3 days. So this thing is basically just changing my filter socks for me.
All right, wait, time out. Lazy reefer, man. Like, I don't know, is it really that? Like, if I don't want to change out my filters, crawl underneath my sump, pull all 4 of my filter socks out, they're full of turds and bristleworms and stuff, go wash them in my washer, buy new ones constantly, go put them back in there. So if I don't want to do that every 3 days, does that make me lazy?
No,
I don't
know. Because my other option, how about this? Choosing to run filter socks, but not maintaining them in a way that actually makes them effective. Why would I have them in there in the first place? Lazy reefer. Like, why would I have them in there?
If I made the intentional decision to put them in there and then not take care of them, I can understand.
There you go.
All right, so here's the thing. We all understand how the filter socks work. There's all kinds of them out there, or the roller mat type stuff. I don't know if there is like a universal name for these things. I call them roller mat because I was like the first one.
Fleece mat, fleece roller. There's a bunch of names for them. We all know what we're talking about when we say roller mat.
First one that was like really viable for a smaller aquarium.
Right.
All right. So the Dream Box Fleece though, here. So this is the one that's going in my tank, and you can see it here. It's a little different. This is actually incorporated into the sump. And so you can see there's a big, huge area for all of those turds in there. And I can actually adjust the water level in it. You can see a little light on the side there that like indicates where the water level is.
This we need to spend some time on discussing on how this works, because this is not like a sensor. It's not a float switch that you're moving up and down. It's also not like an optical sensor that you're moving up and down.
It's a capacitive sensor, so it's like sending electrical signals through there to like measure the density. I don't know exactly how it works, but so it's a little capacitive sensor that slides up and works on the outside. They also make an auto top off that works off that. Honestly, I'd use it if it was made for 110, but it's not. I don't know. So that's the thing here though, is like, that's pretty cool because with the Dream Box you can move that thing up and down. And by the way, if you're hearing about you're gonna hear all these little cool features today. I hope some of the sump guys and some of the skimmer guys and some of the Refugium guys listen to what's going on today, because almost all of this could be applied to a much cheaper like sump. You can incorporate this. None of this is like super miracle rocket science. It's just like an advancement that can be applied to anything. So hopefully some guys are out there listening, because some of this stuff is really cool.
So one of the questions is like, is there a difference in performance of, like, for example, like yours, it spans that huge area, right?
Yep. So you'll see it just rolls it right up. That after hitting I just triggered the sensor there, and it just rolls that garbage right out of the tank. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty satisfying to see. Like, it's exiting. It's gone. It'll never be back in there again.
So do you think there's a benefit to having that much coverage of all the water that's going down in the sump versus something smaller?
Well, so here's the thing. is if you look at that, there's a reason why there's a water level. So I could move that water level way up, and then in that area, the water level would go way up. And instead of having like a little area like this that I have covering with felt and water, it would be this much, you know?
Yeah.
And here's the difference, is this much gets actually a lot of restriction really fast.
Right.
It clogs really fast, which means the sooner it clogs, the sooner it removes it. So it is going to remove it really fast, not gonna leave a lot behind.
Right.
If I do it this high, you know, it's going to hold on to that stuff for a lot longer. It's going to be submerged. You'll probably only roll up every other day or so.
Gives it a chance to break down.
It's going to break down. That makes it an adjustable filter, right? Maybe I want some of that nitrate or phosphate or some of the broken down poo and food in my tank to make its way through. In that case, I'll raise it up.
Yeah.
But that's going to be based on like measuring your nitrate and phosphate. So I would make it on the more aggressive end, especially when you're starting your tank.
Right.
And then if you're fine, you can't keep nitrate and phosphate up, well, you can start to loosen your filter up. You know, especially you don't have corals right now, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're just fighting algae and stuff in
Right.
the beginning. All right, so that was a really cool piece of it, is that you can actually adjust the water level in there and adjust the amount of filter material that it's exposed to.
Yep.
I didn't anticipate that at first, and so a really cool thing. So the next thing is you can adjust it with a timer too. And so there's a little timer in here. The first timer just kind of tells you how long it's gonna trigger by the sensor, and then it'll wait 10 seconds or so. You can set it to whatever you want.
That top one tells you the sensor has to be triggered for at least 10 seconds before we roll.
I thought that's the way that it worked, but actually it does this. As it's triggered, and then it waits 10 seconds to roll up. So it just doesn't get triggered over and over and over again,
that makes
right?
sense.
And then the second one is how long it will be on after it rolls up. So why would I care about those two things?
Yeah.
One is I don't want it to trigger all the time. So the 10-second delay, you could make it as much as you want. You can make hundreds a second. You can do whatever you want. But I just set it at 10 because that seemed like a good number.
Well, I mean, that 10-second delay also kind of, if there's a water fluctuation in your tank for some reason, and all right, it triggers, but now we're balancing back out. Okay, well, I've got that 10 seconds to balance back out before I just arbitrarily roll up some things I didn't need to.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You know, I should test what happens during like when the sump's off and the water level goes up, or the return pumps are off.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, that'll be interesting. So we had the delay, and then the other part is actually really cool. So it times how long it's on. So most of the roller mats out there just work off float switches, right? And so the float
Fixed
switch
positions.
goes up, and it triggers it, and it rolls up a little bit, water
level
falls.
goes down.
So in this case, I can set it for, you know, if you watch my Facebook, it was set for like 10 seconds. And the problem with 10 seconds is it rolled up all the turds and then some clean stuff too.
Yeah, it was a big waste.
Okay, so the opposite could happen. You could set it for like a 1/10 of a second. It would roll up like maybe, I don't know, a 1/4 inch of it, right?
Yeah.
Or you could set it up, and I found that it's there's like little rows of the filter material, you can see it, and it goes maybe about 1.5 inches for every second or so. You know,
okay.
so you could choose to roll all of it out immediately or leave some in the tank, again, making that adjustable filter, you know,
That's
based
crazy.
on, you know, do I want more or less nitrogen and phosphorus in my tank, right? So you can see it here, just kind of roll it up. This is what it looks like going into the roller. On the top, you can see that 10-second delay going.
Yeah,
and as soon as it goes, then it changes to 3 seconds, and you watch it roll that stuff right out of the tank. I don't really know what's in all that brown stuff, but I'm so happy it isn't in my tank because it looks like garbage. And, you know, here's the thing. Is somebody said this, and you guys, if you've been watching BRStv, you heard of this 100,000 times, but we are not taking care of fish and corals. What are we taking care of?
Water.
Water.
Always water. Water quality, water clarity, parameters, the whole nine.
Your ability to maintain high quality water is just like the net result of that is just like healthy fish and coral.
Yeah.
Right? And so a lot of people like talk about dirty tanks and stuff. Dirty, just synonymous with uncared for. Now, you might want to have a high nutrient tank for a certain environment, but dirty just means uncared for, right? So, yeah, all these things, all that brown stuff that was in the water, they were swimming around their own toilet. We're doing the best we can is to get that out and solve the whole issue with Moana and the fish being in the ocean. All right, so.
But there is a potential to fail, and a fail-safe, you know, is built in here on this one too.
Oh yeah, so here it will clog. In fact, I had the thing unplugged in the before, like right away, And so the water will just go down the little exit hole here. So
just bypass the
if
whole
it ever
thing.
gets totally clogged, that's what would happen. And that's actually brings up a good thing, because on Facebook yesterday, people were asking, well, what happens if you go on vacation or whatnot?
Yeah.
You know? Well, if it like got stuck or whatever, God forbid anything happened, that's what happened. It was just like your most filter socks. Like if they get clogged, there's a place for it to overflow. This does too. Same thing. So this is the piece actually that came across for me. If you watch this next video here, you can see it just kind of rolls out. But look at this. Yeah, you just roll the stuff out. You can roll it in. You could really. It's such a simple thing. Okay, so here's the idea that sparked for me.
Oh, this was so good on Facebook yesterday.
Okay, so here's the thing. Why are all the fancy pumps and motors
Float
and sensors
switches
and all this stuff?
Why?
Right?
You don't need it.
So right now what you're asking me to do, and typically with a filter sock, is crawl underneath the sump, pull all that stuff out. And the reason, actually one of the reasons I hate this is because I let mine go too long a lot of times. And the last time I did it, I stuck my thumb in there and it came out just covered in bristleworms. I mean, it hurt like hell for a long time.
Yeah.
There's so many of them, it kind of went numb. Oof. Yeah, and so here's the thing. I don't really want to do that, and I just don't do it. So what if there was a manual version of the like fleece material out there? So every 3 days, instead of like pulling all that stuff out, washing them, doing all that stuff, I could just go up and like crank a little bit more, or just spin a wheel, and just pull up a little new paper, pull the turds out into a roll, and be done with my life.
I am more apt to do that than changing my filter socks, running them through the washer, having to clean the washer, worry about detergent, all this other stuff. If you telling me, one, not only are you telling me that I just walk by and go a little half crank and I'm done for the day for my mechanical filtration, but two, if you take out all the moving pieces, all of the float switches, the motors, this, I get a reduced cost and I get less chances and points of failure.
Okay, I was thinking about it. When you say reduced cost, it shouldn't cost any more than the filter sock.
No, it shouldn't.
All the plastic that goes into building and cutting all those little filter sock area holes out, all you're going to do is take a couple of wheels and a rod and set it down in something, and maybe it costs extra $50. I don't know. But it's not going to be dramatic.
No.
And then you just wheel it out of the way. I don't know why somebody doesn't make that. They should.
Get a new roll too.
I was actually looking at the Platinum thing.
The trigger systems.
Trigger.
Yeah.
I think they could modify theirs. Pull out all the float switches and stuff and just put a little crank on it, and that would do it. So I might hit them up about that.
That's a good one.
All right. So this is the one thing, though. Actually, that brings up a super good topic.
Yeah.
So if you're going to buy one of these things, sadly, I think that Thieling is getting rid of the big wheel one that we used to sell. It was kind of hard to incorporate into your sump, and that's probably why. But here's the thing. A lot of people have problems with how much of this floss material they go through. But like on the old one, there was a giant wheel.
Big, wide,
and it has a filter material this big, goes all the way around it. And so it took a while to clog all of that. Right? Yeah. And so nowadays, though, I mean, it was really cute that they made one that fits inside of a filter sock holder, but it's only this wide and it's only this tall, and it clogs immediately, and you just burn through paper, right?
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of different options out. The compact one from Thieling now is super easy to install, and probably the one I'd use in most cases. It's a little plasticky, so it doesn't look as cool, but it's way easier to install.
A little more contact time in that roll.
Yeah, it's bigger too.
Yeah.
Yep. But this is my advice. If you're really thinking about doing this, a sump that incorporates this into it is just so much better.
Well, look at this next one here with how big this whole chamber is now. All of the water is coming in right there at the top right of the screen. So I mean, every bit of water coming down from the display runs through this. And it's this, that's 16 inches wide and however deep?
It was 17 inches deep, the whole area. So this is 1.5 feet or so of total area. That, 1.5 feet of total area for this thing to, clog and fill up. And I just think a way better, it just doesn't clog as fast, and the material lasts way longer. It's a better solution.
What do you think about adding multiple filter socks? So I've got a sump with one single filter sock. It's going to clog up really quick. I add 2, 3, 4. Now, how long does it take for 4 filter socks to clog up versus just the one? More surface area, more length of time.
So I went and looked at this, and so like the platinum from Trigger was like $800, right? So it's definitely a more expensive than just a plastic box. The motors and stuff on it. I'd be curious now though if we can get them to make a cranker one for cheap.
If you could cut the cost.
But then I went and looked at one of the best options out there that had more surface area for like doing a retrofit to your existing sump, and it was $400. And it really just made me think, I mean, $400 is a lot of money, but like, should I just get a new sump that has this thing incorporated in it, does the right job, right tool, right job, and I'm gonna be happy with it for the next 5+ years? Yeah, if I can, So in most cases, these things just work better if the sump is designed to handle this than trying to retrofit it later. So just know that. All right, so but basically, again, this is what it looks like, is all that brown garbage, it is just coming out. And if this isn't nutrient export, frankly, man, I don't know what is, right? So this is pulling out the big turds, the big food, the shrimp, the whole thing. And again, this thing has no fish.
You have no fish, you have no food, you have no turds. It's just
this is stuff decaying off of the rock that went in there because it had been used before.
Haitian rock,
Yeah. So or it either been used before or it just came out of the ocean that way. I'm not sure. But so it's just the stuff decaying off the rock being pulled out. All right. So the next thing, obviously, is you pulled out the big shrimp, you pulled all the whatever.
Yep. All the big particles are gone. But there's probably some bypass.
What's the next option? Skimmer. Everybody knows a skimmer. Everybody's used one. There's a big thing here today, though, that I'm going to share with you right off the bat. So a lot of people want to know the difference between a good skimmer and a bad skimmer. What's the best one for me? All that nonsense. All right. So usually it's 100% based on whatever I bought. That's what most people will share, right? Like brand affinity. That's the best one.
Okay.
Right? Then it will be because there's some gimmicky thing on it. I don't know. But here's the thing. If I'm going to boil it down all to one sentence, it's going to be, I wonder if it'll be one sentence or not.
Probably not.
If I'm going to boil it all down to one thing, it will be that you can adjust it, and when you adjust it, it works.
Yeah, it's not like,
I think that was one.
I mean, all skimmers have adjustability to some degree, and it's either a valve or a riser tube or something, some form of adjustment. But I've had plenty of skimmers before that I've done a little, turn or adjustment, and next thing I know, I'm either overflowing like crazy, or I'm not doing anything, or it just doesn't do anything, and that's not a good skimmer to me.
So here's the thing, man. I think people got caught up in the air wars, kind of like par wars of lighting. Just more air, more better. Wasn't true, right? If you watch all of our videos on it, you can go see why that's the case. But more air, more better. The right amount of air. And the right amount of air means I can adjust it to the amount of food input that I have at the time. I don't want to buy a skimmer that's right for 5 fish when I'm eventually going to have 50 fish. And if I have 50 fish, I want the thing to work when I have 5. I want it to go all the way with me. And if I dump in air and I have no organics, it won't work. If I have tons of organics and very little air, it won't really work. So here's the big thing about a good skimmer. A good skimmer, end of story, is when you adjust it, it does what you thought it would do. It's super, super satisfying because I've seen so many that don't. And I'm going to tell you, like, there is no magic to this other than the people that make the best ones have been doing it the longest, and they use it on actual tanks. Some of the cheapest options out there are just gluing pumps to a tube and hoping for the best. That's just kind of thing. They do work, but they don't work as good as the people that actually use them and have been building them for 30 years. All right, so this is kind of what the skimmer looks like in my tank. So you can see that it's pulling out turds. I keep saying turds, but there was no turds in here.
No, that looks just as dirty brown as your paper. You wonder where the stuff, if it went through if all the water goes through the paper and you're pulling out that brown of stuff that you see on the right, where is this other stuff coming from?
It's the smaller particles that the paper doesn't get. The felt material, it bypasses that, it gets through that felt material, and the skimmer's getting it. So big, smaller, right? But here, if you can go back to that shot, actually, I want to say one thing. Look at, I mean, they're almost the same color. In fact, this shot doesn't make it look as much color, but if you see it in person, It's the same stuff. It's pulling out the exact same stuff, just at different sizes.
Different levels,
right?
different sizes, yeah.
And so like, well, I get it, man. I pulled out all the big chunks while it's still whole-ish, and then as it decays, I'm getting it better with the skimmer. All right, so next shot here, and I gotta tell you right off the bat, these little lid things,
look at that,
outperformed what I ever would have really thought.
There's so much condensation on the top of those, which means it's condensation not in your fish room.
Yeah, there's no humidity in that room at all.
That's fantastic.
And so those things work super well. This is another thing that could absolutely be incorporated into
any sump.
Any sump.
Any sump.
You know, like, it doesn't have to be expensive sump. It's cheap little polycarbonate thing that goes on the top. So like, this is a thing that could go to anybody. You could build your own for sure.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to do one later, so I'll show you how to do it. Like, not today, but we will show you in the near future how to build your own
covers.
Yeah, they do have to be polycarbonate, otherwise it'll warp. There might be some other materials out there, but acrylic will just like bend up.
Don't put anything in the sun either.
All right, so this is what it looks like when you look inside the skimmer, and again, it's pulling all that stuff off the rock, super thick.
So you haven't necessarily tuned it for what, you know,
I
at
plugged
this
it
point,
in.
right? You just plugged it in. And
I kind of tuned it a little bit, but I didn't put any food in here. I didn't really think it was going to pull out much,
right.
So I didn't spend a lot of time on it. So this is just kind of the way it's been working for the last, I don't know, month or so. So yeah, it's just got a big thick foam. The cup is full. If you look over, and this is how you tune it. So that next video actually was the one where you tune it. So this one has a telescoping tube. So instead of using a wedge pipe only or gate valve or whatever, it's super easy. Just slide it right on up to whatever water level you want it to be at.
Sort of like, because this is a single pump skimmer, adjusting the telescope tube is sort of like adjusting the water level depth that it sits in, more or less, right?
Absolutely. So here's the thing. One of the things here is, and you get these wedge pipes, a little bit more, a little bit less. You're trying to, like, you know, create this like back pressure.
Yeah, to fill up the body with water or less water.
I have no visual reference to where it is really, amount of them. When I lift the tube up, which has an exit point on it, I know where the exit point is now, and now I created that's where the water level is.
Yep.
I can literally see it. I can slide it up to where I want it, want a little bit more, pull it up a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's pretty satisfying. Another thing, man, it's just a tube inside of a tube. Anybody could do this, right? So hopefully you'll see that in other skimmers as well. But within that too, also, I won't make you go watch this whole video again, but inside there's a wedge pipe also. So get it to where you want it, and then use the wedge pipe for fine tuning, right? All right, so again, in this case, I didn't actually try to tune it, but I had to video this afterward because I just kind of eyed it up to the water level, and then like I couldn't even see the wedge pipe, so I don't even know where it's at. But then I saw the skimmer, like, whoa, total change. Look at this. All of a sudden, totally different foam than I was getting before just by making some adjustments. I made an adjustment. In this case, I didn't even have to even try, and I got a different type of foam coming out of it. It's like a totally different skimmer. I wanted it wet, I wanted it dry, I wanted a different type of foam. There it is, right? That is a very satisfying experience, especially if you've had a bunch of skimmers where no matter what you did with them, they never work. And the worst part ones are the ones where they look like that boiling pot of water on the top and then never does anything. Never creates a thick foam, never goes there. There's tons of air top to bottom, but never creates anything. Yeah. Most frustrating thing you could possibly own.
But you can refine that even further. So, I mean, there's one thing to change the depth of the skimmer. It's one thing to change the wedge pipe. And you're changing the dynamic of how you collect that foam. But when it really comes into dialing this thing is that air input.
Yeah, this is where we think about it like the combustion engine, right? Like if I put too much gas in and not enough air, it doesn't work. If I put in too much air and not enough gas, it doesn't work, right? So this is the same thing. Air in organics, fish turds, all that stuff in the tank is the fuel. Air is where it's going to attach to, and if I get the mix wrong, all the bubbles just burst prematurely. It's going to be the organics that make the bubble actually hold together and be stable to get out, right? So if I got low organics, it'll flow over. So here's the thing. I often think of those wedge pipes and telescoping tubes and gate valves. It's how you collect the foam. The amount of air you use is how you create the foam to begin with, right?
Whether dry or wet.
Yes. So I had it running at 30 watts here, and you can see I'm going to go turn up the. Can you start that one from the beginning? Let's see here. That one right there.
There we go. So
Yeah.
you can see in
so
the
I can
top
see. I'm gonna go
right,
change it up. Start turning up the watts on this pump. I got kind of a dry, stable foam.
Basically,
Add more air.
Increasing what your pump speed is increasing the amount of air that's getting injected in.
It is absolutely doing that.
Yeah.
So I'm adding more air now by increasing the wattage, and look it, there's a result.
Yeah.
Right.
Big,
All of a sudden,
thick,
wet,
bubbles.
super thick, foam. And that's because there's a lot of organics bubbling at the top of that thing. There isn't a lot of waste in the tank, so once the organics are gone, you're going to see it kind of dwindle out a little bit. So you're going to see, you'll be able to tune this thing to your actual need in your tank, right? Using the air and then use those adjustments. Now, honestly, I think this is one of those things where a lot of the different DC skimmers out there are already doing this pretty well. As long as you got DC and I can control the amount of air reasonably well, great. And to some degree in AC, you can kind of tune down the air just by closing the nozzle on it. But the problem ends up being you end up pulling up too much water now.
Yeah, it's
so
a
you
tough
close out the air,
balance.
the water comes in.
Yeah.
I will also say that Red Dragon pump here, and most DC pumps, dead silent. You can't even hear this thing's on. In fact, we were gonna silence the room using like
those
dampening pads.
No need.
There's no noise. I don't know what I'm gonna do with that wall now because I don't have no need for that.
Well, that was a worry too. Putting in that vent is you can really hear through that vent from into the other room, but there's nothing to hear. Even with those and with the covers on the sump, like we talked about.
There's 4 pumps going on in there right now, and you can't hear a single one of them.
No.
Yeah, so that's cool.
Awesome.
All right, so the next thing is the skimmer is, in this case, we're going to clean it, right? So
the roller mat cleans itself, essentially.
Yeah, essentially.
This one you have to maintain.
Yeah, sometimes I like the threads, sometimes I like to pop it off, and in this case the threads worked really, really well. They're easy and clean. It actually comes, I think, with some kind of lubricant if you want to use it too to make sure it never gets stuck on. But it's really easy to pull it off, right? So the next one here, this was the one that if you saw the video earlier, it was kind of satisfying because normally you have to stick your hand, wedge it in there and try to get all that garbage out. The inside just comes out.
I didn't know about that until we messed with yours on your tank here, and we've had these, the Royal Exclusive skimmers for a while. These deluxe ones. Didn't know the center of the cone came out.
Look how easy that was to clean. I couldn't believe it in real time. Like when I was doing it, like man, this is the most satisfying skimmer cleaning experience I've ever had in my whole life. That spray jet thing.
Spray jet is perfect.
Oh man, but the whole thing was so easy, right? And then even clean the lid here. It just sprays right off. The whole thing is done in 3 seconds, And so, I don't know. The whole thing was really, really, really easy to maintenance. And this is what it looks like when it's done. We're back to a clean skimmer, and we'll start producing. And then, probably a couple days later, it will look like this, and you'll have a bunch of gunk in it.
Back to it.
Yeah. All right. So. That is the experience of the skimmer. So far we're pulling out the big stuff. So with the filter mat and adjustable.
Yeah.
We now got the skimmer. It's adjustable. So again, I want the right amount of nitrate and phosphate in the tank. I'm gonna have a lot of fish though, and I'm gonna feed them a lot because that's what I do. And there might not get it all.
There might be some excess nitrate and phosphate.
Yep, and so I think we're going to go on to that next slide, actually. So the next thing is the Refugium. So this is the Refugium, right? So the Refugium here is, you've missed it. It's settled out in the tank somewhere, in your sand, in the rock. It just decayed.
Breaking down.
It broke down in a way that like the skimmer nor the filter floss was ever going to take it out. Turned into nitrate and phosphate in the tank. So be it. All right. So that's why Refugiums have become so popular. In fact, to the point that some people will actually skip the skimmer, skip the filter sock, just use a Refugium and run like near zero nitrate and phosphate all the time.
It works really well. Too well sometimes.
Catch all the way on the other end.
Yeah.
And actually probably that is the biggest problem, is too well in many cases. All right. So, I mean, I think everybody knows what they look like. It's pretty much this, like just a big box with a bunch of chaetomorpha in it, right? And then again, I'll use this slide again here. We're chasing nitrate and phosphate because we don't want to have algae and all kinds of other pests growing in here. So here's the thing. Why doesn't this gigantic sump have a Refugium in it?
Yours currently right now?
So many people have asked me this.
Are you going to do a refugium? Well, there's a couple things. So when would you put it in? At what point would you turn a Refugium on if you had a Refugium? And there's actually, if if you guys think back to way when the 360 first started, and we're just kind of sitting here conceptualizing it, the tank's not even in yet, you had these big bright ideas for display refugiums in the wall. And it still needs to be a possibility, because I think it'd be cool.
So what I've learned here is that a refugium can be anything that sucks up the nitrogen and phosphorus from the tank. It doesn't have to be chaetomorpha. Chaetomorpha just happens to be one of the easiest things to grow and care for and have it do that. So like, great. However, it could be something cool too, you know?
Yeah.
And so in this case, what I've seen is if you have a tank that's just wall-to-wall coral, doesn't matter how much fish food you put in there. Doesn't matter if you do water changes in many cases. Doesn't do. Corals just suck it all up. They're sucking it up into their own living tissue.
Good.
Right?
Yeah.
Great. So what I'd like to do in the future is create a display refugium. So whether the display refugium is like all bubble tip anemones, or if it's like clams or xenia or zoanthids, or
even different varieties of algae, though, like all of your flame algae. And I mean, there's a bunch of nice block toads, mangroves. Yeah.
In fact, back in the day, when in my very, very first tank, I had xenia, and the xenia would grow up in sheets all over it, you know. And I just go up every once in a while, scrape it off with a paint scraper into a bucket and throw it in the yard. Right? I didn't know I was doing nutrient export then. I just thought I was getting rid of this like pest organism, and I'd get it all, and it would just like grow back all the way over everywhere. But I was probably doing a huge amount of nutrient export by doing that. I just didn't know it. So this is actually one of the things I'd love to do the most. I met this guy from Clam Mania, actually helped me with my Nia while I was at a show. But
I didn't know that was
nicest
him.
Guy I ever met. But I'm like, man, what if I created a clam refugium? Go back to that photo for just a second, man. We could make some look-down tanks or in-wall tanks, maybe put like a little mirror so you can look at it down straight on, whatever.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and like create something really cool that isn't chaetomorpha, right?
It's funny. It's funny because like when we were having these chaetomorpha and refugium conversations, every time the topic came up, Tyler from our customer service would. I think we'd ask the question, "What's your favorite? What's your preferred method of filtration?" And he'd always say clams. Clams, just a bunch of clams.
So clams will also, I think, take out the yellow pigments in the water. So they may even like remove the need for like carbon and stuff. So I'd love to find out. So that's why I don't have it incorporated in the sump. And in the future, you can expect to see this. When the future, wouldn't know what future means, but somewhere down the road, that's what I would like to do, and that's why I don't have a big space for it in the sump. All right, next question we get asked all the time is this one.
Yeah, which one's better or which one's more effective, right? The algae scrubber or the skimmer or the refugium or even the algae reactor?
Yeah, really honing down to is why not an algae scrubber? Algae scrubber, algae reactor, refugium, like all growing plants, right? The answer is, man, all three work, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so like it doesn't really matter. Just pick the one that fits in your system. I will tell you that my own personal choice here is if you have the space, a refugium for chaetomorpha means I walk up, I grab some, I throw it in the trash, I'm done.
If you have the space.
If you got the space. If you don't have the space, now you start talking algae reactor or a algae scrubber. So I think I just never run an algae scrubber personally. I've seen them here, people do them. This is my own concern, and you actually were telling me this isn't real.
I don't know. I haven't seen I haven't read the same. Okay. I don't know where you got the notion.
I don't know where I picked this up. And maybe you guys in the comments can share, right? But I've read that if you need to clean this thing and scrape it off every week.
At least once a week.
And that if you don't clean it every week or so, what happens is like the algae kind of crashes. It gets covered in like brown algae and like decays, and like it just has big problems. And so I've read that, but like I haven't actually seen that happen. And I actually see some scrubbers here that don't get the maintenance they should, and I haven't seen it. I'm just a little uncomfortable with it is the only reason why.
Well, I wonder if part of that also plays into, because I've noticed so I have the scrubber on my 60-gallon cube, and Zach has the same one. And you notice that, okay, so if you don't clean it, eventually that algae grows right up into, depending on the design, grows up into where the water comes out and trickles over the thing, and now you're getting spots where it's blocking water, and now it's drying out and not getting the water in some of those areas. Maybe that leads to like the algae death. Who knows? But I kind of let mine go about once a week, and Zach, when we were working from home, we let his go like once every 2 weeks or so. But at scraping, there'd still be plenty of like green hair algae and stuff on it. So I don't know.
I think it's just whatever fits in your space in the end of the story.
Oh, for sure.
Because either one's going to work.
I definitely can't fit a macro algae reactor in that tiny little skim sump in that 60 gallon, and not a refugium either. So my only option is the algae scrubber.
So I've heard this thing, and I don't know if this is true either, but that a refugium does better at sucking up the carbon dioxide and elevating the pH of the tank than a scrubber.
Growing in
Well, the scrubber actually pulls atmospheric CO2 rather than CO2 from the water. So for those of you who don't know, a scrubber works by just having a little net that's hanging down, and it gets lit from both sides, and basically hair algae grows on it. And then you just scrape the hair algae off and you throw it in the trash. So you're like, instead of growing hair algae in your tank, you grow it here and you get rid of it.
Works.
So here's actually, I wish I could have got a slide of this now. I forgot that this conversation was going to come up. But somebody shared on my page, and this is something we saw at a show once, of the idea of the felt reactor mixed with the algae scrubber. And so just track with me for a second here. But the problem with the algae scrubber is it still requires work. Every week or twice a week, I'm scraping algae off, throwing in the trash. And you need to like populate the surface, and the reason you have to keep using that same surface is because it has the other algae on it, and you need to keep it populated. What if you had a felt material that was populated with that hair algae and it was growing on there, and you just rolled up a 1/4 inch of it every day, or an inch or something of it every day, right? And now you have both. You have the benefits of the algae scrubber, and it's just rolling that algae out of the tank for you, which is awesome. And the only other question would be really at the bottom, what happens when it runs out. But I think you probably have to catch it, but you could just tape another piece of this stuff to it and have it continue to go. Right?
I mean, you could poke holes in the way that would work all the time, but there is a way. Somebody is going to have to come.
Yeah, there was like a debate on my Facebook page about it.
And maybe it's not that the water comes. Maybe it doesn't not lit from here, but turn it on its side, and now I'm rolling.
So the guy over at Clearwater is actually Josh is like kind of working this out. I think there's a patent on this design because I met the guy that made one of these things at a trade show, but he didn't really seem like he was going to make them, which is really sad. Which was like the problem with the algae scrubber to begin with. Is somebody had a patent on the algae scrubber and then just like sat on it. Didn't let anybody do anything with it. So I think there's now a new patent on this kind of like felt material, but I don't know what the patent says or doesn't, or if it's even been given. Who knows? So that is a really great idea, but in the end, if you have an algae reactor, however, basically an algae reactor is a refugium just in a tube. You've just changed from a square to a tube. If the tube fits better for you, great. It takes a little bit more work because there's little nuts on the top. It takes about a minute to take the nuts off, and then you take it out, grab some, throw it in the trash, put it back on nuts. It is not as simple, but 2 minutes is 2 minutes. I guess you will see. I think you can classify me as a fairly lazy reefer. I mean, I'm not really lazy, but I have some things I just don't like doing, and that's probably one of them. And so I'll share with you how much it ends up pissing me off in the end. I don't know. So, all right, this is Pax Bellum. So I wanted to put the best one in there. So that's it.
I mean, if you've been following your Facebook, you've seen this thing a couple times, but.
End of story. I think Pax Bellum owns the patent on this type of reactor. So or this algae reactor, lit from the center. So
you want to see it?
Yeah, let's see it.
All right.
So basically, it's that. Can you start it from the beginning here? I think we fast forward somehow, but you just kind of pull it right out the top. There is a.
There we go.
Oh, there. So you pull it right out the top here. And all of the chaetomorpha kind of grows intertwined and all that stuff.
Shove a bunch in there, and
there's a million little LEDs in the middle. That's one of the things that makes it better is there's so many LEDs, which means more light, more photosynthesis, more nitrate and phosphate consumption. That's why it has to have a heat sink on the top. You won't see that on some of the cheaper models out there. And that's just it. You pump water in the bottom, comes out the top, and probably water goes in with nitrate and phosphate, comes out the top without nitrate and phosphate. Yeah, it's just that simple. All right, and so I'm going to put it in the end here. So like
I've got a really good question at the end of all this, but go ahead.
Well, so you can run these things externally if you want. So I could run it on the floor or something if I wanted to, but I also have an area where it fits in. So
it fits perfectly. Otherwise, we're gonna have to cut that thing, though.
Oh yeah, we definitely have to cut that lid. But like, it fits right in there, and I don't have to worry about leaks or anything there. And so I'm definitely gonna run it that way. I asked and made sure that it was safe. I'm gonna have to cut this polycarbonate top off, which will probably show you actually how to do that as well.
Your router will work really well for that, won't it?
Yeah, so the router will work. How do I get that round shape? You know, I'm not like, that'd be my first rodeo is cutting a round shape out that looks nice and I don't destroy it. So we're gonna learn some and I'll share it with you. Probably share that one on Facebook and not YouTube because it'll be a little shorty, so follow there. Yeah, so that's where it's gonna go. And it's gonna run off the manifold. So there's a little manifold that feeds the algae or the carbon reactor. Also comes out there at the top.
We knew it comes out there at the top because we've been sprayed with water out of that one.
Yeah, we didn't have it shut off when we turned it on the first time. Water decided to come pouring out the top.
Yeah.
So we'll feed it out of the manifold there, and it will feed right back in the bottom. And
this is cool.
Yeah, so this is really important. It's not just a feature. You know, it comes with quick connects. Right. So you can take it on, you can take it off, really, really easy. This is why. Because you need to be able to take it out. Like a lot of people won't be able to get the algae and stuff out. And I need to bring it to the sink and clean it. It's important here.
I think anybody who's either say they have their a reactor, maybe carbon GFO reactor, anything, or a pump with a hose on there, trying to get that silicone hose off just to pull this piece of equipment out, it means I'm just probably going to unplug the pump and move the whole thing as one. But with a quick connect, even after a while, that push connect type fittings and stuff become hard to remove, and now I've got to try to figure out a way to get a wrench in there and squeeze it and get it out. But with a quick connect like that, the whole thing comes out and into the sink.
Yeah, so even if you buy a cheaper version of something like this, they make colder quick connects.
Oh, yeah.
Use those things. Find it maybe a little union, I don't know. But find a way that you can take it off really easy because you're going to want to take it to the sink sometimes.
Yeah.
And you don't really want to be crawling in there.
Yeah. So we've there's okay. I got two things.
Okay, go for it.
Now that we've talked about this filtration in a big particle, medium particle, small particle, elemental type, does that mean that you could say that you've answered the question, or can you better answer the question of which order do I put my filtration in? Do I put filter socks first? Do I put my skimmer first? Do I put my main reactor before my skimmer? Constant question. We get that question all the time. But thinking about it the way we just laid it out today, I've got a path for the way I should lay those things out.
I mean, by accident, yes.
I know.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to pull out the big stuff first.
Yeah.
I want to pull out the rest of it after, and then if I can, do the Refugium after that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could. It's not it doesn't have to be that way. Other than the filter pad should be first. For sure. But I can see some benefit. One of the things though that you see when you put the Refugium before the skimmer, what happens is it captures all the little bits of turd and food and stuff in the network of chaetomorpha, and it starves off the skimmer. And actually, this is a good point too. So a lot of people, when I first got my skimmer, they're like, "Isn't that way small for a 360-gallon tank?" And the answer is, yeah, it is. It's smaller than you would normally get without the filter pad.
On purpose, though.
Yeah, because the filter pad is going to pull out so much of the turd that the fish, there's none left for the skimmer. And if I get a giant skimmer with a coffee can neck and I don't have any fuel for it being organics, it's not going to produce.
Yeah.
And that's the heart of one of the things we've been talking about a lot, is undersized skimmer will always work. It just won't pull all of it out.
Right.
An oversized skimmer will often work like a boiling pot of water and never produce a damn thing. So go smaller than bigger. And that's coming from somebody who actually would benefit if you bought bigger one, I guess.
Yeah, true.
Don't do it, man.
Don't
Buy
do
a
that.
smaller one. It will work, and you'll be happier with it.
Well, I mean, especially if you think about all of the filtration that you have going on. So if you're going to run filter socks, you don't need to oversize your skimmer. You don't need to undersize your skimmer.
Step down one for sure.
Yeah, same thing with the with the algae and things like that. Like, do I need a huge skimmer if I've got this sizable refugium?
All right, I'm starting to connect the dots here, actually.
Yeah.
So, if I was gonna go get, I'm like sitting here, I watch this video, and I'm
Okay.
like, all right, well, I want a better skimmer,
Yep.
and I really like that filter sock thing. Sounds super cool. All right, you know what? You could go and get the platinum
The trigger systems, yeah.
It costs $400 more, but I can get a smaller skimmer.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, and then it starts to narrow down the cost.
That's
so
true.
yeah, I don't know. But anyway, that was actually what Bubble King or Royal Exclusive told me as well. Is the team over there is like, you definitely want to size it down, and they are also people. It was super refreshing.
They benefit more if you had a bigger skimmer.
Yeah,
more
like
money.
they want normally people want to say more stuff. So like, I was super refreshing, and then when it made sense, I'm like, oh man, you guys know your stuff, and I really appreciate it. So that was cool. So what was the other thing you said?
If you're okay, so here's the other part. So that was one. If we answered that question, 2. All right. So in each one of these 3 types of filtration, we gave out some really good ideas that somebody can implement if you were paying attention. 1, we can a manual roller mat. Somebody go make it, please.
Boom.
Number 2, skimmers with that telescoping and wedge adjustment.
Boom.
Easy
Everybody.
to make. Yeah.
Yep.
And 3, the algae reactor type, or the algae roller, I guess, is another option. These are all like on the verge of, you're probably doing something that's going to revolutionize the hobby in a few ways.
If somebody makes that algae roller thing, they're going to be rich. End of story.
There you go.
Like, if you want to quit your job, go pick up the algae roller thing. Because it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's so perfect to grow algae on that felt medium is perfect for growing the hair algae or turf algae on there, and then just rolling right out. and no work, man. You've got a nutrient export, and then you can probably control like how well it's working by how much light you give it and how much you roll out.
Oh wow!
And perfect, man, perfect.
Please, somebody make it.
Yeah, that was actually one of the things we missed here. Actually, talking about with the algae reactor too. All of those things we talked about before were adjustable.
Yeah.
So is the algae reactor. Just be the amount of light time that it's on.
Yep.
So if in 8 hours I'm consuming, like 2 parts per million nitrate out of the tank or uptake it, turn it on for 4 and it'll only be 1.
Yeah, I mean, it was the same thing that we found here with the 160. It was working too well, so we went to a shorter time period. Still working too well. Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yeah, we turned it. We had 3 days a week on.
Yeah,
it still worked.
Yep.
So like a totally adjustable filter, and so that's the end game for me. Is that like I'm gonna have this thing set up, to make sure that I can intentionally regulate my nitrogen and phosphorus content in the tank.
At any point in time in lifespan of your tank.
Yeah, and in the beginning it's going to be super aggressive, right? I'm probably not going to run the Chaetomorpha thing right away, but super aggressive. I'm going to set the roller mat to, or the fleece roller to really low so it clogs fairly fast and pulls it out fairly fast. I'm going to tune the skimmer to pull out everything I can because I don't really want a bunch of pest organisms growing in my tank, algae and whatnot. Yeah. And I will. People asked, when are you going to turn on the Chaetomorpha reactor? The answer is when I need it.
Yeah.
Right? When my nitrates and phosphates start to rise and the other solutions aren't working, I will turn it on and I will solve that instantly.
Yeah. That's easy.
So excited.
Yeah, get some fish in there now.
All right. So there we are. That is the nutrient solution. So I don't know if there's any questions
the
or
1, 2, 3 punch.
Yeah, that's what I called it earlier when I talked to you about that. Yeah, so there's a few questions up here.
Yeah, let's get some. Brian, he says, considering buying a similar Royal exclusive sump, where can I purchase the replacement fleece rolls? Will BRS carry them in the future?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I'm actually working with those, the Royal Exclusive guys to bring the sumps here because right now, I mean, there's some problems with this, to be honest, but like right now, you have to order them through USA, it goes to Germany, you're waiting 4 months, it's like a lot of work, right? Yeah. And who wants something from 4 months from now? So I'd like to bring him in here. So like that was one of the things. If you buy any like Bubble King stuff from us or Royal Exclusive stuff, we have it here in the warehouse. It'll ship today.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a big difference in ordering off of their German or the USA website. Or, like, who knows when it's coming?
Right.
But so I want to have them here. So if we're gonna sell them, I mean I could just drop ship them and send them from Germany, but like that's a terrible experience. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So we're looking to bring these things in here. So and when we bring them in, we're gonna bring in the rolls. I actually personally need rolls. Luckily, they sent me like 4 or 5 of them. So I'm going to bring those in for sure. But we'll get the rolls in so that they're here for you. But for anybody who's interested in one of these sumps, we're going to bring them in here too. And when you bring them in here, that means that they'll still go freight because they're huge. But they're in the warehouse ready to come. So that's a good question.
I like Nancy's question here because this is a common one when we talk about any type of filtration. And she asks, I'm wondering how the different filtering methods affect pod populations. I have many pod-eating fish.
You know, I haven't seen any of these things have any impact, really.
Yeah.
So, like, in theory, you know, the pods will go down, they'll get stuck in the filter pad, I don't know. But I also don't see, like...
But that's assuming that they're just all over the floating in the water and riding the wave down the
filtration. They usually live on surfaces.
Yeah,
right?
in the rocks and in the rockwork, sand.
Yeah, and so this is like one of those things where a lot as reefers, we talk about... A lot of times a plausible theory kind of wins out because we don't know the answer and we'll never know.
And then repeat it.
And so like, oh, if you have a refugium behind the pump, then the pods will never make it up. Not true. That one actually I know for sure. But like if you look at your filter pad and you see a couple amphipods on it, well, then great.
Yeah.
But if I've been running that filter pad forever and there isn't like a total slaughterhouse of pods on it,
you can open it and
it's
see.
not wiping them out, right?
That's true.
The skimmer, I mean, it's only sucking up some of the water. It's probably not going to do that.
Yeah.
The refugium definitely will grow pods in it, whether refugium or the algae scrubber probably too, to some degree. The reactor will definitely do it. They'll pump them out and they'll go into the water. And this is what I've heard. Actually, I went to a MACNA and I sat through a little seminar on pods and this very question.
Yeah.
And there are different species of copepods. The long antenna form of copepods will not make it through return pumps very well. All the rest of them make it through the return pump just fine. So will you not have long antenna copepods? Maybe, but that's probably not even true because they populate in the tank itself.
Yeah.
You know, so the ones that live in the sand, live in the rock, and are hidden to some degree. So I think it's a good question to ask. I think in real life application, no effect.
Yeah.
By no effect, nothing measurable or meaningful.
Yeah. There's a couple more in here, and I'm kind of pulling them from my little iPad here and from the thing. I guess this one is pretty good. You know, Kevin saw all of those covers on that dream sump and wants to know how does it affect pH? Or does it have an effect on pH?
Well, so far no.
And you have the pH probes plugged in now too and calibrated?
Yep. So far no. I don't know. So the theory there is, will it trap CO2 inside of there and inhibit gas exchange by having all those covers in there? Well, first off, the skimmer is pulling from the surrounding air and
injecting.
Yeah. If you think about a skimmer, like we've all heard the conversation about like aquarium carbon, where it's like, you know, a tablespoon of it, or I think it's a teaspoon actually, is the surface area of an entire football field. Because, you know, on the microscopic level, it's like a little honeycomb. It has an immense amount of surface area. Right?
Yeah.
The protein skimmer,
thousands
all
of millions
all those
of bubbles.
millions of little bubbles, and the gas exchange is happening around that bubble. And that's why when you use the CO2 media to scrub the CO2 out of the media, it affects the pH of the entire tank just by changing how much is on the skimmer.
Yep.
So far, no. I've actually had the same question, Kevin, so it's a good question. I'm also on the tank. I was originally not going to vent the hood because I haven't had to do that in the past. But with how much water's in there, I was talking to Chris. And he's like, dude, you see all that water that's building up on the top of those lids in your sump?
Yeah.
It's going to build up in your hood.
Same thing.
Yeah, so we're going to vent the hood out slowly. I don't need to like pump moist air into my house. but I can make sure there's enough air going through there. I don't get all that condensation. And in that case, I'm always going to keep fresh air over a tank that's like 8 square feet.
Yeah.
So, or maybe it's more than that actually. So, yeah, 6 by 4. So, yeah, a lot of feet. So, I don't think the lizard. It's going to keep all that moisture out of my room there, though. So it worked out great.
Cool. Yeah, let's do one more here. That one is Rich. He says, "Are you running the UV 24/7?"
So right now I'm running it 24/7. I just have no reason not to. And when I start dosing the microbacter clean to like when the lights and stuff are going on, I probably will turn it off. I mean, that's like an upcoming episode that I haven't decided 100% on. We'll have some hot debate about it.
But we're also revisiting that kind of that question too of the UV's effect on a brand new. We're resetting up that UV sterilizer flow test as we speak.
Oh, well, what we're setting up, for those of you who want to know, there's a new experiment that's going on in the back, and we're going to test how these bacteria is actually, how fast they actually help you cycle the tank to begin with.
Yeah.
And then after that, do they really get rid of the ugly stage? So there'll be 6 tanks, redundant, nothings, different bacteria and stuff in them. So I think we'll find out whether I can really get past the ugly stage. It'll probably happen fast enough that I can use it on my own.
You might be able to use it.
Yeah. So I don't know. So I think next week is going to be flow. I think I got notification that our little flow sensor shipped. So
sweet.
yeah, we'll be able to use the flow sensor in my house to make sure it actually works. It's really
That's
for you
awesome.
guys in testing pumps here, but I mean, I might as well bring it home.
Play
right?
play with the toy.
Yeah, so awesome. All right, well, there it is. Filtration. Now you got it. Hopefully you guys can tell us whether or not you think the filtration is actually solved.